Unwrapping a model has 3 steps: marking seams, unwrapping, that is, separating the three-dimensional model at the seams to place the pieces on a two-dimensional surface, and finally packing the unwrapped pieces, called islands, to use as much of the two-dimensional space as possible. Over the years, many Blender add-ons have appeared and keep appearing to accomplish these tasks. I'm going to use 3, currently my preferred add-ons, to mark, separate, and pack. For marking seams, I like to use Blender's built-in capabilities, but also find the Blender's add-on UV Flow useful for viewing the seams, which can sometimes be hard to see. UV Flow's toggled overlay is also convenient, as is its ability to mark and unwrap simultaneously. To straighten UV islands, I prefer to use UV Toolkit, which is a built-in add-on that comes with Blender. Finally, for packing, I prefer the Blender add-on UV Packmaster 3. The main features that I like in UV Packmaster 3 is the ability to stack and group selected islands. And then to pack sets of islands to other islands that have already been packed into the UV space, a feature UV Packmaster calls Pack to Others. I never really got the hang of UV unwrapping until I watched Josh Campbell's YouTube video, The Simple 4-Step Process for Perfect UVs. Here I learned that it's all about rings. All one has to do when marking seams is to isolate the ring and then open the ring by marking one seam. It's much like flattening a cardboard box. Take this simple shape. There is no ring of faces, so one does not have to add seams to unwrap it. Now here is a cube. It has a ring of faces that need to be isolated, then opened by adding a seam to the ring. I'll first add seams to isolate the ring. Then add a seam to open the ring. To model in Blender, one starts with a primitive, of which there are several: a cube, sphere, cylinder, etc. The plane and circle primitives do not have rings, but all of the other primitives do. With a cylinder, just like the cube, the two ends, if filled in, need to be separated to isolate the ring. Then the ring, which makes up the sides of the cylinder, needs to be opened by adding one more seam. A cone is just a cylinder that is missing one end, so the single end, if filled in, needs seams to isolate the ring, and at least one seam added to the sides of the cone to open the ring. A UV sphere can be thought of as a cylinder with both ends capped with a triangular fan. So like the cube, the ends need to be separated and then a single seam added to open the ring. Note that I have been using custom keyboard shortcuts to mark the seams. I use the keyboard's 8 key to mark seams and the keyboard's 9 key to unmark seams. I also use the keyboard shortcut the U key to access the UV menu. As I modeled the RedRiver cart, I separated the model into several parts. Some of these parts, for example the front, back, and sides of the box, were formed from one primitive, the cube, so these are easy to unwrap. Other parts, for example the beams and wheels, were formed from several primitives. The beams consist of 5 cubes, and the wheels of 26 cubes and 8 cylinders. So each of these needs to be unwrapped by isolating and opening the rings. Also, when unwrapping, one needs to keep in mind how one is going to texture the model. For example, when adding a wood texture to the cart, the unwraps need to be orientated to accommodate the wood grain. The front side of the box is a cube, which is missing some of the edges. One edge of the ring, the bottom edge, is missing, so we don't need to add a seam to open the ring. Missing edges on the ends means that the ring is partially isolated. Here we need to add seams to complete the isolation. There are several methods one can use to unwrap a mesh. In addition to unwrap angle based and unwrap conformal, Blender 4.5 offers a third option, unwrap minimal stretch. There is also Smart UV Unwrap. Choosing between these options can give different results. For the board front, unwrap angle based seems to work best. That is, the faces are opened only where the seams have been marked and the single island created is straight. The 4 faces that need to be isolated from the ring could have been separated from the ring. However, here I have not marked one seam on each end, so that the 4 faces have remained attached to the ring. With the beams, each of the 5 cubes has a ring that needs to be isolated and then opened. Marking seams of each individual cube can be facilitated by hiding the other cubes. The cube to be worked on can be selected by hovering the mouse cursor over the cube. Selecting the L key, then Shift plus the H key hides the other cubes. Again, unwrap angle based yields straight islands. The wheel mesh has 26 cubes and 8 cylinders, each of which needs to be unwrapped. The wheel rims have 4 rings each. These need to be individually isolated. Because the rims are going to have the buffalo hide texture applied, opening the rings in 2 places ensures that they will occupy more of the UV space. With the rims, unwrap minimal stretch gives the best result. The UV toolkit can be used to straighten the islands. Note that UV sync selection must be unchecked in order for the UV toolkit straighten function to work. Once all of the meshes have been unwrapped, similarly shaped islands can be stacked. The beams, posts, top frame, and wheel meshes have islands that can be stacked. For example, within the beams mesh, the 2 beams can be stacked, and the 3 cross ties can also be stacked. First, applying packing lays out the islands so they can be individually selected. The islands can then be selected using the L key. By selecting the UV unwraps, and in the UV toolkit selecting Stack Islands, the islands can be stacked. In UV Packmaster 3, the stacks can then be grouped so that the similar islands remain together when repacked. After selecting a stack, under Stack Groups, a group number, for example 1, is selected, and then Assign Islands to Group selected. The next group number is selected to group subsequent stacks. Once all of the similar islands have been stacked and grouped, with normalized scale checked and rotate enabled unchecked, all of the islands can be selected and packed in View vPackmaster 3. The last step in UV unwrapping and packing is to maximize the UV space assigned to the wheel rims. This is accomplished by packing the rims first, then packing the remaining islands by selecting them and then selecting Pack to Others.